Today is.
Oh, no, no, as you
I
will.
need
Oh,
to
you
read.
also have to. Okay.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
The date is December 28th, 2022. The name of the lady is Rose Weinberg. I'm the interviewer. My name is Etty Klein, and we are in Miami, Florida, United States.
Put it down.
So, what is your name? Your name?
My name is Rose Weinberg.
When were you born, Rose?
I was born in April. Actually, I don't know if that's the right date, but that's the date that was in my papers, April 1st, 1941. But I was told that I could have been born. I could have really my birthday could have been in June or September. Nobody really remembered, but that was the date that they put in the document, and that's the date that I'm stuck with, April 1st.
What are your parents' names?
My father's name was Yossel Levin, and my mother was Hinda. Uh, Her maiden name was Breast, and then after she married my father, she was Levin. And I also had a little sister who was 5 years old, and her name was Hayala. And she was in the ghetto together with my mother,
Which ghetto?
and Vilna ghetto. And the whole family was there except for my father. My father tried to escape to a little village to his relatives, and my mother, he wanted my mother to follow, but she said she was too pregnant and she really couldn't travel. So she says, "You just go on your own, and I will stay here with Hyla." And my aunts were in the same ghetto. The rest of the family was there. And apparently, what happened, what I was told, is that uh, that was the village where my father went to hide was attacked. One of the first villages was attacked by Germans, and everyone was killed. So he perished uh, pretty well at the beginning of the war, and so my mother was left alone. And at that point, I was born, and I uh, she was a very brave woman, my mother, and apparently she didn't look Jewish, and so she was putting on a cross, getting out of ghetto, and going out to buy groceries and whatever for the whole family. So she was basically a provider for everybody. And she decided that there is no way that she can keep me in the ghetto because it's too dangerous. So whenever she went out, she was asking people if they could take me to their home to raise me. And apparently, the story was that some Lithuanian couple um, took me in, and she paid them a lot of whichever arrangement they. But then when she ran out of funds and ran out of, they didn't want me anymore. So that's how this woman took me in, because somebody approached her and said there is a little baby that these people don't want. Would you take them? And this woman says, "Well, I'm too old. How can I justify to have a Jewish baby?" I was 2 months old, apparently. And but she had a daughter who was 14 years old, and the daughter was begging her mother that she wants a little sister. And so she finally agreed to take me in. And that's where I ended up with this old lady and her daughter. And at that point, apparently, my mother really didn't have anything to give, but she, whatever she could, I guess, to help out, she used to come to visit. And until the time that they decided to liquidate the ghetto. And once, so at that time, my aunt was away. They put her on the bus and they took her to work. So whoever was in the ghetto, young people were going on the truck to work, and the people who were with children and old people were in the ghetto. So my mother was in the ghetto with my sister, but my aunt was away. So when they were liquidating the ghetto, my aunt wasn't there, and she never came back because they took her to Bergen-Belsen,
Your aunt?
my aunt, yeah, and the other people that were in the ghetto, they made two lines. People who are old had to go old and with children to one line, and young people to another line. So my mother knew that the young people going to be taken to work. So she tried to go to that line and hide my sister to go with her. And that's when she got killed, apparently. That was the story I was told by some people who have, I guess, witnessed or the story, they knew the story. So that's, but my two aunts survived, and they were
Your
my
mom's-
father's sisters.
Okay.
So I lived with this family. They
The one with the 14 years old girl.
girl, yes, and they never they kind of like they were hiding me. I was never really exposed with any children. I had a very like lonely existence because they were scared to in case somebody should know. So I was always like by myself, playing with some rag dolls or whatever there was around. My memory isn't that great, um, but I think when I was about 5 or maybe 6, I can't remember exactly. Um, that's when I was playing outside with some children. That was already after the war, and we had some kids around, and I was like, and all of a sudden, all these Jewish people were coming around. I guess there was a word that there was a hidden child in the midst, and they came asking questions, and I guess wanted to take me away. And the sister and her mother made the promise that they would never give me away to no one else unless the parents came to claim me. But the parents never came. So when all these Jewish people were coming around, and at that time was very anti-Semitic, so I said, what are all these Jews doing
You
here?
did not know you were
I had
Jewish.
no idea. And then the kids said, well, you are Jewish, so I guess they knew. So that's when they told me that, yes, that I was Jewish, and that I had the parents, but they never came. So this is like I was staying with these people now, and but that's the only people I knew. So to me, that was my sister and my mother. So to me, that was no difference because whoever would show up, I wouldn't
Go
accept it that it would be a stranger to me. So uh, I think that's when they baptized me, and I became Catholic, and I was given a Christian name,
What was it?
Vera Martul, and but probably people knew because it was so. Um, I felt then I started to feel that fear that I'm different, and I was feeling so
How old were you?
uncomfortable.
How old were you?
Well, when I was started going to school now at 7 years old, and I felt I kept looking at my fingers, I kept looking at my nails, I kept looking in the mirror. How different I am. I'm Jewish. What's what's different about me? And I was so scared at school because they all made fun of Jewish kids. And I was sitting there tittering that they shouldn't touch me because, like, is it showing on me that I'm Jewish? Like, I was trying to hide the fact that
Wow.
I wasn't Jewish, that they shouldn't know because then they would pick on me. And I remember there was one I was always scared when I was going to school. There were some neighborhood hoodlums, and they always picking on me. I don't know if they picked because I was a little girl or they picked that they knew I would. I don't know, but I was always scared to go by that place because I knew they're gonna do something. They're gonna pick on me. So it was always that fear. And anyway, so that was the time when I went to school, and there was one, and then I started to kind of pay attention to Jewish kids, and there was one Pese Engor, and she really looked Jewish, and and all the kids were very mean to her all the time, and I became her friend. We became friends, and I never forgot her name, and I never forgot her. And one day, and I used to go to their home, and I remember her mother was very nice to me, and then they told me that they were gonna go to Israel, and they have to go to Poland. And I remember they were getting rid of some stuff in their home, and we were very poor, so I was so happy when they were giving me stuff and I was bringing it home to use in some pots and whatever household items anyway. And it was funny that that name always stuck to me. And then one day when that was years and years later when I got together with this man after my, and I was always talking about Pesa Angor. And I wonder what happened to her. She's somewhere in Israel. And that was a very interesting story because my husband found her.
How?
And when I went to Israel, we met. And and then I found out about her story that her mother gave her away to some Gentile people, and until the war ended, but she survived, and she came to claim her, and she wasn't happy to go back to her mother because these people were quite well off and they spoiled her and they had toys and everything. And here comes this old woman with, kerchief, and after the war, I mean, what
Exactly.
could she give
Yeah.
her? Anyway, so that was an interesting story that I found out when we spent the evening together. It was really nice. But anyway, I'm getting off the subject. So, uh, so that was my life, uh, and we lived in a like a very old house, but it was actually quite comfortable because we had like 2 rooms, and and it was like on the outskirts of the city. So her mother was, we had a garden and we had fruit trees, and we had berries, and we always had good vegetables and fruits and berries. So it was plentiful food, and she grew pigs.
Your mother.
My adopted
Adopted, of course.
Gentile mother,
Yes.
and she was almost like a farm woman. Like she knew what to do and how to raise pigs, and she even killed them herself. And we always had meat, and it was like the life was pretty good. And my sister always worked to support me and her mother, because her mother was she was an invalid when she was young. I think I don't know what happened with her leg, because had she couldn't walk. She walked like not well, like she was limping, and so she worked from age of 14 and supported me and her mother. And the mother, of course, was growing vegetable stuff, so we still had. But um, but then she met this person, a Lithuanian fellow,
The
who
daughter.
was the daughter, and she wanted to get married. I guess at that time she was already. So I was maybe 10 or 8. I have it on the picture.
We
I
will
don't know
see
how
the
old
picture
I
in a
was
minute.
there.
Yes.
So that's when she met him. But she told him that she can only marry him if he agrees to support the mother and her little sister. So he agreed. So they got married. But he was in the army. And so from there, they sent him to different countries, to Russia. So we had to give up our home. We had to give up
The mother
everything,
too.
the mother too. And because we depended on them, she was very helpless, and I was still little. So they were the ones who were taking care of us. So we had to do wherever they went, whatever they did, we had to follow. So she so we had to give away our place and everything that was there, and we took a train, and first they sent us to Sverdlovsk, which is like a very cold Sibir town. It was like a um, army base, sort of. There was a house, and and the school was. I had to walk to school in snow deep high, and every time I would come home, I would have my fingers frozen and my toes frozen, my cheeks frozen, and then the mother would try to rub it so I wouldn't discolor my face. So anyway, that was pretty.
Rough.
So it was for a year. So the following year, we had to pack up and go to Chelyabinsk and be there for a year,
It's also in Siberia.
also in the Ural Mountains. And after a year there, which my memory is very, but by then she already had a child, I think, because she ended up with 4 children. Anyway, so then after a year, we ended up going to Sverdlovsk. So that's 3 years out of our life. And after that, he got out of the army. His term was over. And we came back to Lithuania, to Vilna,
Yeah.
with nothing. No apartment, no jobs, no, like really, really awful. And had to start from scratch. And no place to live, was very difficult to find apartment. So somebody that she knew, my sister, lived in a house around the lake that had two rooms. It was a kitchen and a bedroom. So they let us rent from them the kitchen, and then by that time we were no, excuse me. First we were with one family, and then her mother got very sick and she passed away. After she passed away, we ended up going to this place with the kitchen and the bedroom. So they were four people in one room, and we were four people in the kitchen. And we had, like, she had already a son, and then it was two of them and I, four of us, living in that little kitchen. And I had to go do the homework when they were cooking. And anyway, that was the conditions that I was growing up. Finally, they gave us an apartment that was not that great, but it was better already than what we had. Then she had another child, and then then she ended up having another child. Anyway, at that point, um, she already had three children, and I was 16, I think. I was already
And
16.
your mom, your adopted mom,
So-
was still alive.
No, she died when we just came back from Russia.
Oh, okay.
So that was
Okay.
it. That time I think I was maybe 12. So and all of a sudden we received a letter from Canada that there is a relative,
How did
that
they
I
find
have
out?
a relative.
But how did they know?
Okay, so this is what happened. My aunt came to Canada from Bergen-Belsen. She was in a DP camp,
Okay.
and at that time when they were looking for domestics, a friend of hers put her name down as a domestic so that she could leave Germany to come to Canada, to London, Ontario. That was the family that she went to as a domestic. She had like a contract a year to work for them.
Okay.
But before she left Germany, as it happened, she met this man, Harry, and he took a liking to her. But he invited her for tea, and he made tea, and they met, and I guess he liked her, but she was already leaving to go to Canada, so nothing really happened. So that was it. She came to Canada. She worked for a year. Then she came to Toronto from London, and she got a job in Mount Sinai Hospital in the kitchen. So she was working. She already got sort of Canadianized, and like, and she met some people, and she was renting a room, and she made some friends that also were from the camp. So she had already like a little group. And then all of a sudden she gets a letter from this Harry, and he's writing to her that he would like to come to Canada, but if she doesn't want him, he has family in the States, so he will go to the States. But he wrote this letter so beautifully, and my aunt wasn't so sure. She was already Canadianized. She really didn't even remember what he really looked like, and she wasn't that interested. But she had a friend who was she respected her opinion, and that friend was the one who put her name down to come to Canada because she was educated and she knew what papers to fill out. So she went with this letter to this friend, and she says to her, "This is what I got. This man is writing to me, and he wants to come, and I don't know what to do. Like, I'm not really that interested." Anyway, she looks at her and says, "Oh my God." She says, "If I got a letter like that, written the way it is, from a man like that, I would grab him with both hands." So then already she says, "Well, if that case, perhaps I should consider." Anyway, so she sent him the request, and he came to
Okay.
Canada. And of course, it was very difficult because, first of all, he didn't have the profession. He was a businessman in Poland. They had a shoe factory there, and he was a salesman for his father. He wanted to be a doctor, so he was very bright, very smart. But his father said, "Look, I need you." It was all before the war. "You have to help me, so you can't go to school. You have to." Anyway, so, and he was not good with his hands. He was good with his brains. But so whatever job he could get, he took, whether it's sweeping the sidewalks, the streets, wherever he could make a dollar. And she still had, anyway, he says to her one day, "There's no way I can make a living. We have to buy a business. I have to be doing something." Anyway, they found this little cigar store on Bloor Street. And they they borrowed some money, they put it together, and they opened the cigar store. They worked there day and night from 8 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock at night. They never had food together. She would go upstairs, make the food, then she come down to work. He would go upstairs to eat. This was their life. But they already settled, and they were already like doing not bad because he was very good businessman, and he used to attract a lot of children. They would come and he would greet them, "Hey, hi," shake their hands and stuff. Then they would bring the parents because they wanted to know, who is this Harry that the kids are raving about. So he got business going, and they became very successful. But of course, long hours. And anyway, so now he said that perhaps she should quit her job because he really needs her help in the store. In the meantime, they get a letter from a person in Israel who is from the same city as they, and he's a friend from home, and he's in Israel, and he wants to come to Canada, and he's asking if they would sponsor him. So they said, "Okay, we'll sponsor." They sponsored him and his wife. They came, they stayed with them, they gave them, they settled them, they found them work for them. Anyway, they really like looked after them. And one day he was saying, "I still have a sister in Vilna." And right away, before that, they wanted to have children. And my aunt couldn't have children after the wars, whatever happened, because she was married before and she was getting pregnant all the time. She got married just before the war started, and then she had to have abortion because so she figured it'll be very easy. Well, something happened, she couldn't. So they decided that they will adopt. So they got all the papers to adopt the child. And they made the room ready and they made everything. And the social worker came and she said that she's approving. It's going to be a wonderful place. They approved to have the child. Now, this man says he has a sister. And my aunt right away says, "Oh my God, I have still a niece there, but I don't know what happened to her. I know that my sister in law gave her to some Gentiles, and I don't know what ever happened. And the only thing I know that when she was a baby, she had a mark on her around her eye, and maybe that's the only way would know if so right away her husband Harry, he says, "You know what? I want the address of your sister, and I am going to correspond with her. This is Iron Curtain. It's not easy to," he says, "I'll take responsibility on myself, and I will do everything possible for her to find this niece." And this is what happened. He wrote to this woman. This woman
He wrote
to the sister of this man who they sponsored from Israel.
Okay.
So now they find out that she lives in Vilna, this woman's sister. So he wrote to the sister to see if she could find me, and she found me.
Oh.
She went around asking questions, and there was still a lot of Jewish people after the war who knew, and they directed her that she came and she wrote back that yes, she found and so they started corresponding with me. So at that point they canceled the adoption, and after a couple of years then they were sending parcels and they were helping, and but it wasn't so great because in those days it cost them a lot of money to send the parcel, but when we got it we couldn't really make much money on that. Plus her husband was drinking and he was an alcoholic, so the life, and by that time she had a fourth child, and I didn't want to go because that's my family. But then at that time I was, I think, only 15, 14, 15. But then with the life that we were having and the struggles that we were having, and I was very, very committed to them. I was very grateful, and I was always wanting to help, to do something for them. And I said, you know what? We are suffering here. Maybe it's a chance if I do go away and they have no children, and maybe then I'll be able to help you. So we won't be suffering so much. But she also didn't want to give me up. But she was worried that I was becoming a teenager, and her husband is alcoholic, and he comes home drunk, and she was afraid that maybe something he could do that, and so she sacrificed really to, and then we didn't even have like money to buy clothes for me to travel. I had nothing. The Jewish community all got together. They collected money. They collected enough money that actually I said, I don't want to spend it. I want all to give it to them. So they bought I bought some like a coat and some shoes, whatever, just and the rest I left so that they would have, and and it took a while. Had to make papers. You had to prove that I was Jewish. I had to establish my identity, my Jewish name. I had to find in the archives my parents' names, and I also had to prove that they were Polish citizens. Because in order for me to have left Russia, the only way I could have left is to leave to Poland. So all this had to be done to prove that I was Jewish, to prove that my parents were Polish citizens, and so that I could go to Poland. So they did all the papers from here to arrange. He found someone in Poland that would take me in and to stay with them, because then from Poland had to make all the papers to come to Canada. And to come to Canada was not easy. You had to prove your health. You had to go to the doctors. You had to have all kinds of tests. You had to prove you. I mean, they made so difficult, not like today. Today people come like they just announce that they are refugees and
Right.
but in those days it was like took 6 months for the papers to be ready for me to finally come to Toronto. And they and the money that they had to spend to get me there was astronomical. And they like I felt so bad because they worked so hard, and then they were spending it on me to come. And then they called that the plane they there wasn't direct flight, that they had to pay more money because that plane had to go first to Montreal and then from Montreal to Toronto. So they said whatever it is, they just so that anyway. So I arrived finally in 1958 on Rosh Hashanah.
Really?
Yep, and it was one of the friends that they knew. They didn't want any publicity. And my dad was very modest. He didn't want like he was really a genuine person who whatever he did, he didn't talk about it. He just did it, and didn't want any cover for anything what he did. But this person, he called the papers and the news and telegram, and they were all kinds of cameras. So I have some articles where,
Really?
oh yeah, oh yeah. And that phone didn't stop ringing because people have read the story and they were calling to congratulate and to say how wonderful, how happy they are for them and all that. So, and I came, first of all, I was so sick through the whole trip. I was like, and I came like, I guess I was 17 at that time. I must have looked like maybe a little girl 12. Like really, you know,
Yes.
and so like, so it was very, it was a shock, kind of, culture
course.
shock
Of course.
at first. And we couldn't communicate too well, but I did speak Polish a little. And my aunt spoke a little broken Russian Polish, and my dad spoke Polish. So I was speaking broken Polish. So we managed. And then he was very, very set to get me all the help to learn English and to like to start for me to go to school, and so I went right away. They put me into grade 9, and I was having such a hard time because I wasn't used to all that. And then there was like music. They gave me an instrument to play. I never saw one. I never touched one. All of a sudden, I had to play an instrument. It was
That's
quite
another
interesting. Anyway, after 2 years, I was not very happy with all the kids, younger kids, and I was already more of a, 18, like. So they sent me to a private college, business college. and I wasn't that um, how can I put it? Um, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, Academically, was not. Uh, I wasn't like my brain wasn't already absorbing. I was interested already to go out and to go with opposite sex and like to meet and
To
so
enjoy.
yeah so anyway, but once I went to the business college I was very happy, and that's how I ended up working in the office and everything else. So that's the part of my life up till now, up till actually till I got married. After 5 years I met my first husband, and I got married for love. That was love from first sight. I said, if not him, nobody. After the first date, and I came home and I said to them, that's it. I'm. They said, who? What? What?
Wow.
Well, I was so naive, and I had no experience of life whatsoever. And for the time that they had me, they really spoiled me. I was like their apple of their eye. And so, and everybody, like if I went out, I didn't like anybody. And then all of a sudden I meet this very handsome, and he sings and he has a nice voice, and I just fall in love. And of course, that's it. But I did have a good, we were married for 12 years. I had two children. But unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be, I guess. And so he left me, and we divorced, and I raised my children on my own. He did not participate in their upbringing, unfortunately, and he just kind of ruined his life totally, and we just never had. And after 8 years, I met someone else, and I got together, and that one lasted a long time, but wasn't the best. But my life turned out okay. So
Understand.
that's basically what.
At the beginning, you say that you don't know your. You should. We should. If we could, we should interview your aunt about her life. So, do you
Yes.
know anything about her life in Bergen-Belsen? And
Well, what I know is that my dad, like when I came here, they adopted me, so I became Rose Friedman. And what I knew about my dad, Harry Friedman, is that he was born in Radom, and the family had shoe factory, and they were very well off until the war. And of course, and he was married before, and he had a child, but the wife was killed and his child was killed, so he was on his own. And with my aunt, um, she ended up in Bergen-Belsen, and then she survived, fortunately, and that was my muzzle that she ended up with him. And because if it wouldn't be for Harry, I would never be here, because she was not capable of bringing me and doing all the work that it took and everything else. So it was just, I feel like a miracle
it is.
that
It is.
that my life turned out the way it did. It was just like
It's a miracle.
a miracle, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you said you met your friend. Pasha was her name.
Oh,
From
Pesia.
Pesia.
Okay, so when I got together with my second husband, um, that's when my life changed, because he didn't want me to work anymore, and he was retired, there was age difference between us, and he wanted me to basically spend time to travel and to. So I quit my work, but my children were still young, so I didn't get together with him till my son was about 15. My daughter was already 18. But still, I had to make arrangements for them to stay with my friend. I had to turn my life around in order to accommodate the lifestyle. And um, and so uh, when I got together, I told him one thing. I said, if you can afford, I have um, uh, one um, desire for
wish.
one favor to ask from you is that you would take me to Lithuania to visit my sister, because I made a promise, and the way my life turned out, there was no way I could do it on my own. So if you can do that, that would be really great, great feat for me. So he did, and he took me 3 times. And when Lithuania became independent and her husband died, so the first time when I went, it was really very, very sad. They lived under worse conditions than when I was there with them. That's how bad it was. Um, and then when I went the second time, he was already sick, and shortly after he died. And then they became independent, and I said I would love to buy for her a little apartment, because she lived like in a garage. It was converted into, like, it was really awful. No running water. She had to go to the next building to get water. No toilet. It was outhouse. Anyway, so that's when uh, he helped me, my husband, and he gave half of the money, and we bought her a little apartment that was 1 bedroom, and all this, we had pictures taken and movies and stuff, and now I don't have it because this person who followed and made the story never finished the project. So yeah. But I have some movies on my own, like pictures. Anyway, and so she finally lived for about 7 years in that place, and then he also arranged for her to get pension from uh, like $100 a month she was getting toward her pension to help. So she really had a wonderful life at this point, like a
Thanks to you.
like a real person. So that was, but unfortunately, it didn't last, because um, the next time that we made arrangements to go, and we went, but she died before I got there. So that was very unfortunate. And she did. So her children, like her family, they all died from alcoholism, and only one daughter survived, and she's with a Lithuanian person, and he's a nice man, and so she's living a decent life.
And
I see her on Facebook.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and
That's nice.
sometimes we even speak on the phone. Yeah, so that's the only person that was left from her, and all the others
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what about the girl? You say that was hidden as a Jewish girl, and then she moved to Israel.
Pasha, so we didn't keep in touch. We just saw each other in Israel. We spent the evening together.
How did you know to find her in Israel?
Well, that was actually interesting because my husband, and the second one, he was very good at researching, and somehow he decided that he was gonna find this person, and with the computer at that time, he used computer already, and he came across and he says, I found Pesha Angor.
I couldn't believe it.
I couldn't believe it. And the funniest part is that my aunt, after my father died, um, 10 years later, she ended up meeting, she was friends with this woman who she met here in Point East. And this woman had a daughter, and we all became friends together. And they lived in Hamilton. And so we kept in touch. Now, this woman had a son, and she always wanted the son to meet my mother. But he lived in Israel with a woman. So, but then she got sick, and he had to come here to look after her. And when he came here, he met my mother, and he liked her. And he said to her, I have someone in Israel, and I'm going to go back. And if she wants to come to Canada with me, because I want to emigrate to Canada because I have my family here, then, but if she doesn't, I would like to know if if you would like to have me. So anyway, she said, well, if my children will approve, if my daughter approves, and I don't want to take the responsibility, we'll see what happens, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he goes back, he tells the woman that he met someone, and she didn't believe him because she figures, well, how can you go there to look after your mother and you meet a woman? She says, I'm not going to Canada. My children here, I'm not. Anyway, he says, okay, then Anyway, he came back, and and he stayed with me because my mother, like, she had an apartment there, and she wouldn't stay with him unless they had, like, she was still very old fashioned. So they got together, and I made the wedding for them, and so they got married, just not on paper, just like that, common law. And so that's how come we were going to Israel to meet his son, and we ended up that his son lived just a walking distance from that Pesha.
I don't believe it. It's unbelievable story.
So that was quite a coincidence. It really very interesting, yeah.
Amazing. Do you want to show us a picture of the family?
Yeah. It's that on the corner of the dresser. You'll see there is like 4 people with the little girl standing there like a little orphan. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, that's the
show
one.
it to the camera, so.
So this is the old lady that took me in.
This is the old lady.
There we go, I can see.
Perfect. I see an older lady, yes.
And then her daughter. And this is the man she married from the army.
Oh my God.
And that's me.
It's you.
And that's the time that we actually had to leave Lithuania, Vilna, to go to
Wow.
to Russia, to Ural Mountains.
What year was it?
That was, what year was that? That's a good question. I came in 58, so that's must have been in 50. maybe 56 or 54 or something like that.
Wow.
Put it down, no problem.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else you want to tell me, or that's your life story?
Well, I can't think of. I mean, there is still a lot of my life. I mean, it's 81 years, so. But
Exactly.
that's basically. Now I'm on my own, and
You have two
I'm
kids.
enjoying my life, and I have my 4 grandchildren and
That's-
my 2 children. They are
And-
wonderful, my daughter and my son. And,
Lucky lady.
and I have Nahas.
And this is the main thing. You're a lucky lady. And
I am a
you're
lucky lady. I'm
showing
alive, and I
life.
had a life, and I was able to have a family, to bring a family into this world,
Yes.
and
And it's a great
to
story.
enjoy
Do your
the
grandchildren
fruits of, yeah.
Do your grandchildren know your story?
Yes. Well, my older ones, they know. In fact, interesting enough, my granddaughter, who is 23, and she said to me that, Bobby, I would like to change my name to Martul because I would like to carry on these people's name because no one else has
That's
it
so
or
nice.
carries. And I thought that was so wonderful, so nice. But then I kind of changed my mind and I said, Alexa, that's a lot of work to go and to change the name and to maybe it's best because they are in Yad Vashem and they are honored as
Righteous of the world.
righteous Gentiles, and so they do have their name there, and they are remembered. So anyway, I think she was unhappy that I changed my mind because she was quite serious
Beautiful
about
girl.
it.
You're
Yeah,
a very
she
lucky
was.
Savta.
She was very serious about it, and I kind of spoiled it, but I just felt that it was maybe not
I
that great
understand.
an
I
idea.
understand. You're right.
So yeah.
Thank you for sharing your story. It's so interesting and it's so
Thank
important to know. And it's a whole wide world that you. תודה רבה. Thank you.
Thank you very much.